Yes, we are saying do not buy those things. What do I mean? We're talking about in retirement, buying even a primary home, a new car, an RV. If you can rent it, you probably don't want to buy it. Now, there'll be some areas of disagreement. Might be think we're crazy, but that's okay. We have our reasoning and these are our thoughts, and hopefully that'll open some discussions or maybe even get some people to think. Our opinion is if it requires maintenance or insurance at this age, you probably don't want to own it. Let someone else deal with that hassle and you just use it when you want to and pay rent.
By the way, I'm Elena,
I'm Peter.
and this is Retired Everywhere.
So we've been traveling the last 4 years. We moved and settled in Portugal for a while on a residency visa. We thought about buying. We had friends buy. We had friends try to buy. And between, people who decided that it wasn't right for them and they moved home or decided they just didn't like the house they bought or dealt with builder issues, it really brought us to some points of like, why are we doing this? Why are they doing this? And as homeowners are, my whole life I bought and fixed up and done, homes and always thought what great investments they were. And basically they were like storing money inside a mattress and then pulling it out after I moved away. As an investment, I guarantee you they were not the best investments I could have made because I'm lucky enough to have been alive during this, last 40 years when just investing in the basic stock market would have been a better choice. We're not investment advisors. We're just giving our thoughts based on our experiences and how we're living our life now, which is on the road. So number one, we're not talking about investments. There's a big difference between buying an investment property, even something you stay in some of the time or most of the time, and buying a home. Please remember that difference, as there's a really good guy out there doing Netflix and YouTube who talks about the real costs of owning a place. All those extra things you don't really think about beyond your mortgage and insurance and stuff. Take the time to really figure it out before you pull the trigger, especially on that home in retirement, because you're generally spending a bunch of your cash for a place to live that you could rent.
Yeah, the other thing is sometimes we don't take the time to realize that the older we get, the less energy we're going to have to gardening, fixing things that get broke, a pipe that is frost, name it.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that you or have to pay somebody else to do it or you have to do it yourself. Honestly, getting older is, one of those things that take a lot of your energy. So dealing with that kind of stuff, I don't think is the best way to expend your time.
And if you think about it, especially when you talk about overseas, there are so much more complications, costs, potential pitfalls to owning something overseas. It's just hard for me to do the analysis and say that's a good buy. Now, there are times where you might get lucky. You're there at the right time. I mean, if you were in Portugal 10 years ago, you were buying things for a fraction of what they're worth now. So yes, there could have been opportunities, and there still may be opportunities in the place you want to go. There weren't by the time we got there. That's one of the reasons we decided not to. So now the other part I mentioned, and I just want to dive into a little bit more, is even if you pay cash, there are still quite a few monthly costs involved in owning a home. Whether it's an HOA, a lot of people move into the retirement areas, condos, retirement villages, where there are all these extra costs in there with HOA fees and maintenance fees. And, you end up joining some type of tennis or pickleball or golf club, all those things, all those add up. You have to consider those. And you still have to pay utilities and management fees if you rent it or you're not there all the time and all that stuff. Second home.
Well, second homes for me, I never experienced that kind of thing. But I actually, the more I think about it, I think I will never spend the time or money to have a second home.
Yeah, we have friends who own multiple homes in multiple countries, and they can afford to just let them sit there and have somebody maintain them, while they're not there. But it's just an amazing amount of money to me to have that. But for me, I've owned multiple homes. I've owned second homes a couple of different times, and what I discovered was, unless you are really lucky on the timing of buying things, the maintenance costs are almost always higher because it's either a beach house or you're dealing with the salt air, a lake house where you're dealing with, potentially flooding and maintenance and dock issues, or a mountain house where you have snow and frozen pipes. And there are a lot of maintenance issues. I actually owned a mountain cabin once made of, wood, the whole log cabin thing. The amount of maintenance those things take is just crazy.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? I don't think so, especially when you start thinking about the amount of money you're spending for all that maintenance and the mortgage or, what you put in. And you could rent the nicest place for those weekends or weeks that you get to go to those destinations and not have to worry about all that other stuff. And you could rent just these gorgeous places that other people have to maintain and they've fixed up already.
And on top of that, you don't have to go to the same place over and over
Yeah.
and over, which people enjoy. And I'm sorry, I just giving you my opinion.
Yeah.
I will really enjoy one or two times, and
Yeah.
that's it.
When I had a second home, it was like every weekend. And then after a month or two, it's every couple of weekends. And after a couple more months, it's every couple months. It's once a month or once every 2 months. And then it's like, well, we should rent it out to make some money. And then you can't go the weekends you want because those are the popular weekends. You have the extra day off, and it ain't worth it to us. Number 4 is
Cars. And on that, I can tell you how many times I buy a car, and after just taking the car out of the dealership, insane the amount of taxes that you have to pay and how low the price of that car
the value just drops.
just drops.
And we all love that whole, I want a new car, especially that when you get to our age and you retire, you're like, I want my last new car. We'll have it for a decade or 20 years. No problem. My dad bought, in his 60s, he bought this Lincoln Continental, this big boat of a car. And the first thing he did was rub it up against the side of a wall. And, there's thousands of dollars in damages and, value lost and everything else. It's just, you don't need it. You need 4 wheels and a motor that's reliable. Get a car you enjoy, and the other thing to think about cars is they sit there 90% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
When you're asleep, your car's not doing anything. When you're at work or at the club or whatever, it's just sitting. Why would you want to spend all that money for something that will not be worth that same amount of money a year from now, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if you keep it that long? And you get to pay taxes and maintenance and upkeep and everything else, plus fuel on it whenever you use it. The number 5 is something that people do in retirement, and I don't get it.
I don't get it either. I mean, when I grew up in Colombia, we don't even think about
what is it
exactly. So the RV.
Yeah.
Why in the world, unless you live in there, that I respect that part. It's your home. But other than that, I know many people who buy them and just leave them in the garage or next to the house, getting wet, getting full of snow, things that you have to clean, bugs,
mice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's one of those things that if you love road trips, and I understand the feeling. Again, we're not saying don't do it. Don't go on a road trips. Don't do RVing.
But you can rent it.
Well, yeah, if somebody will rent it to you for less than the price of a hotel room, and you get both your transportation and your hotel room, and you like them, great. We see these, people who buy these huge motorhomes, and they drag their car behind the motorhome. I'm like, for the same amount of money, you could have just rented a nice apartment or even a hotel room. Again, it's our opinion. You may love it. If that is the life you dream of, I'm not going to knock it. I still would tell you to rent it. Why do we say just rent them? Well, one is the ROI, the return on investment. If you add up those real costs that you spend, all those maintenance, insurance, fees, taxes, fuels, whatever it is, utilities in the case of a house, the updates you want to do, upgrading the bathrooms or adding, a roof deck to the mobile home or whatever it is, all those things would be invested if you could be brave enough or sound enough to take that money you would have put into those things and put it into the investments. You're probably going to be a lot better off.
No, and not just that. For me, also, it comes to my mind is for those people who buy a house and live in areas where they get tornadoes or they get big storms with this huge
hail. Yeah.
That they have to fix that every single year. So I really don't understand, and that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I've had to put new siding on a house, new windows in a house, replace a car because of hail damage. Additionally, when it comes to why we say just rent them, because basically if you have to pay for them if you're not using them, that's probably going to be a bad investment. And this goes for even the toys that people have, the planes, the
motorcycles,
talking small planes, motorcycles if you're not out riding all the time, jet skis, boats. Like if you can easily rent them, I have family who, live on a lake, bought boats, bought jet skis, and they probably use them, once or twice a week.
No, the other thing that comes to my mind is some people buy that, they getting older, they barely use them, and they thought, you know what, maybe my grandkids, maybe my kids or grandkids will like to use them. And then they come to your house and they don't even put attention to that. So
or they trash them because they're crazy.
exactly.
Yeah, when you're young and invincible and fearless, yeah, you do those things. You take the jet ski out and you run over a rock, and now you got thousands of dollars damage, and guess who pays for that? So the other point of this is why we say rent them is we're all going to die. I hate to say that. When you do, who's going to deal with it? Does your spouse want to deal with all these overseas assets or new cars and all these toys? Do your kids want to deal with it? Are your kids capable of it? They have lives and probably kids of their own. They don't want that stuff. They have no need. Now, again, you have a beautiful lake house. The kids might think that's a great thing to inherit, but if you have an RV, that's probably not high on their list. And then the other thing is the flip side of all this is when you're renting, you have variety, you have choices. You can go to any place and rent the nicest place there and spend less than you would have, to own a place for the year.
Mm-hmm.
So, we can stay in a penthouse or you can stay in a penthouse apartment one week, a beach villa another week, a little shack on an island some week. You can go to a mountain chalet or a condo in a high-rise building with all the amenities. It's your choice. You're not stuck doing the same thing, the same place. For the people who love them, congratulations. You know what you love. You're happy. Great. We're just trying to tell the folks who are thinking in retirement, I get that big bundle of cash from selling my house. I'm going to go buy X. And I would say, make sure that makes sense for you. Because as I said, if it's sitting there empty, it's probably just losing value and costing you money. Hope you enjoyed our little video. Again, our opinions, not advice, but some things to think about. Look forward to the comments because I'm sure some people will have very strong opinions about this. And if you are somebody who in the last 20, 30 years bought a home in South Carolina or Arizona or whatever and made a fortune, congratulations, you won. I struggle to think that the people who are buying from you are going to do nearly as well as you will. But it could happen. I've been wrong several times today. So thanks for watching.
Thank you for
Happy
watching.
travels.
Bye.